Okay, let's talk about this for just a second, because everybody says, oh, it's the genetics. Okay, now there's a couple of important factors that I want to explain to you guys so they can't bullshit you on this. Okay? Now, what you have is genes, and then there's a thing called epigenetics. Okay? Now what this is every species or every organism has genes. Okay, they're part of the DNA. It's part of that divine intelligence that God puts into things and says, this is how you function. Okay? And so the genes actually describe the job of the organism. Okay, so in our layers, they're going to grow and produce eggs. Okay, we have all these genes over here, hundreds of genes that define the function. And then what happens is this becomes the environment over here. And we used to think that the gene had the first and the last say. It does not. It emphatically does not. A gene has the very smallest part of the say. Microbes have a huge say in which genes turn on and turn off because they produce a lot of the activators for the genes. But the environment, which is the epigenetic side, it says, okay, what can that gene do with what I give it? So if this gene says, make nothing but jumbos, and this one says, make nothing but super hard shells, and make yolks right here that look like blood red, beautiful sun at sunset. Okay? That's in the code. But right here, if my nutrition and my environment and the toxin load doesn't support the code, it ain't gonna happen. This is where everything is decided. Right over here. And so this becomes the dominant factor on what gene expression can become. They're called epigenetic consequences. I put in crappy feed. Okay? God did not put in crappy gene feed right here. That is not in the programming. But what I put in to support this determines what I get out of this. So the environmental factors, my housing, my sanitation, my microbes, my mineral, my feed content, all of these things now become factors that modify this in every way, shape, and size. People say, I have a gene for breast cancer. Okay? Well, they may very well do. If they decide, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to change my lifestyle, I'm going to change my nutrition, that gene has very little opportunity to express itself. And so, however, on the other hand, they have a terrible lifestyle, they smoke and drink, they skip church at 5 o'clock every day, they're toast. Okay? It isn't going to help them. And so really nutrition, microbes, and minerals are the deciding factor of your genes. So if one guy says they just got bad genes, Ed, I'd say you just have shitty feed.
So if you feed shitty feed, these genes can't express themselves.
They can't. They can't. It's like I give Cornea a 100-pound pack and say, okay, see you at home tonight. You know, Cornea is going to figure out how to get rid of the pack and find a ride. It's just like, I can't handicap these genes and expect them to do their job. That's not how they're made. Ed?
But still, if you get in a shitty bird I think you can have the best feed, you'll never get it to being a good bird and cage free.
You're-
Too much competition.
Well, you're exactly right. You can't fix the problem once you get it. And so we see this in the hog industry. Ed and I have talked about this a lot. When you get a baby, you got what you got. I'm not going to change this guy once it's here on the ground and we're starting to feed it. Everything that put that little guy together before determines what he is from this point going forward. Same with chickens, same with humans.
And then on the pigs, it happens in the first month of pregnancy, when the marbling is formed in the taste of the pork.
This is one thing that we actually learned kind of in the process of doing some tests in Iowa on some pigs. We had one of the hog producers that worked with Dave and one of the other gentlemen back there, and he put the culture into his sows. And what he noticed was, instead of having 10 normal sized piglets and 6 runts, he started getting fewer and fewer runts, fewer and fewer stillborns. And in time, they were all normal sized. Well, when they went into Hormel, and he was an integrated producer for Hormel, they called him up and they said, "What are you doing to your pigs?" He says, "I'm just feeding them the feed you give me." And they said, "No, you're not. Because your carcasses scan different than everybody else's carcasses. We can tell what comes through here because we scan every carcass. And so we know the fat content, we know the muscle content, we know the contour." He says, "Your pigs are not like everybody else's pigs. What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm giving them a probiotic and we're putting it in the mother's feed." And all it did was it changed the rate of digestion, improved the immune system, put more nutrition into the babies. And so the ones at the head of the food source were all normal size, but the ones at the end are short, are small. They run out of nutrition. Well, we were transferring more nutrition into the babies, and it's from day 29 to day 50 when all of the fiber, all of the muscle, fiber, tissue, content, and contour is determined in a baby pig. Once you go past that point, you have 1 month to do this, Ed, right? Once you go past that point, you can't come back and redefine how that pig is going to grow. You have feed efficiency, you have muscle conformation, you have size and health right there from the get-go, or you don't have it. Ed?
This product, should it be in the pig or whatever right before she gets bred?
Yes. Yes. They should be on it all the time, and the males should be on it.
The beef guy's going to try it, but I think he's too late. Because he's already got the lambs lambed out.
Well, it's for next year.
I mean, he's going to try it and see if there's a different stage, because our carcasses get grade. We get paid off of grades on the lambs.
You bet. You bet.
Would it help him if he started it like...
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what we did in Montana. Okay, I had a guy, a farm. He raised 2,000 head of Angus, and he kept sheep around because he just liked them. He had 35 pivots here down by Dillon, Montana, 35 pivots, and we were doing his grains and his hays and his feed for his Angus operation. But then he kept 250 head of sheep. Well, every year he had maybe 2 dozen, maybe 30, 35 bum lambs. And so one year he said, "What can I do with these little guys?" Because they'd bring them in, they'd bottle feed them, and then they'd put them in a separate pen, and they'd keep them there all summer. So they were feeding them grain and hay. And he says, they just never do well at the sale. I said, "Well, Bob, we're just going to put a little bit of culture in their feed every day." I said, "Let's put the microbes in their feed." So the other mothers and the lambs go out on green pasture. They're out there all summer long. And he calls me up in September and he goes, "You're never going to guess what happened at the sale barn today." I said, when he took his lambs in, he goes, "My lambs off their mothers beautiful lambs, weighed 109 pounds. He says, you tell me how those bum lambs, without a mother, on dry feed, not green grass and pasture, weighed 139 pounds. He says, man, they docked the crap out of me on those lambs because they're too big. And I said, Bob, all we did was change the feed conversion in the gut. He says, I would never ever believe that you could take a bum lamb and have it outdo a lamb on the mother. I said, well, that was a case, Cornelius, where they were over applying some microbes. I mean, they were very liberal with these, but on the lambs just responded to it incredibly well.